What's your familiarity with red crown rot being found throughout Illinois soybean fields? Illinois Soybean Association outreach agronomist Stephanie Porter will bring you up to date.
When we were trying to see if certain plants were starting to look like they were yellow. And so Abigail Peterson dug one up in our plot here in Shelby County, and actually it was bright red. And so she had sent me pictures, and I said, that really looks like red crown rot. So a week ago we investigated. Still, most of these plants were showing red. We did take them to the plant clinic, and they're going to be evaluated, but visually they were confirmed with red crown rot. And now today, a week later, they're really showing a lot of rot. It's harder to see the red, but they're turning darker. So eventually, we're still seeing some reddening in the roots here. I'm not seeing the fruiting bodies. Sometimes you see at the crown, but just really rotted roots, and a lot of these plants are starting to go down.
Now, this is something that a lot of farmers may not have seen before, so they may not know what to look for. So what would you suggest that they start looking for when they scout soybeans?
So in a lot of these fields, it wasn't as prevalent as you found in this field. So when we started to scout a lot of fields around here, you could not see it from the road. Some people are finding different types of rot, like Phytophthora rot's very prevalent this year. And they might be seeing it from, and they may not be scouting, but they might be seeing it from the sprayer. For example, that's been how they've been finding it. When we started to look at some of the surrounding fields around here, we had to walk out into the field and actually get into the canopy, and we started to see a lot of those foliar symptoms that look like SDS, which is pretty common around this area. And then in other areas, as you move north, and it might be brown stem rot, looks like this. So we usually cut open the stem to tell the difference between those diseases. So brown stem rot's brown in between. But this would be much redder. Again, having some fruiting structure. Sometimes we're not seeing a lot of those right now because we haven't had a lot of rain, so there's not a lot of moisture to have those fruiting structures. But again, our first indication was red, and now we're seeing just really rotted black roots.
Okay, so if somebody starts finding it, what sort of fungicide should they put on?
Well, unfortunately, with a lot of these root rots, there's no rescue treatment. So no fungicides. That's kind of the sad story of it. They are finding in greenhouse trials that Saltro, which is a seed treatment from Syngenta, previously was labeled for Sundance syndrome, and SCN, soybean cyst nematode, is also going to be labeled for this disease now. So that is an option. It's not bulletproof by any means, just like it's not bulletproof for sudden death syndrome, but it seems to be giving some control. And we just need to learn a lot more about this disease. So we're helping to go around the state, collect samples. USDA at U of I campus is working on this, and they're wanting to get a lot more samples so they can see where this disease is actually coming from.
So we really don't know the commonality of where it is then.
No, there's a lot of unknowns with this disease. Whenever I talk to farmers about it, they're like, tell me about it. Well, I wish I could. We're trying to learn more. All I know is I can tell you that if you talk to some farmers in the western part of the state, it's truly devastating now that it's built up in their fields. And they're trying to do anything they can to overcome this disease.
So this is something that would stay in the soil year after year.
Yes, and so far, from what we're hearing, for example, in the western part of the state, after it's built up over time, we first found it in 2017, 2018 time period by the plant pathologist then in the state. It seems like those fields where it's really built up, that's where it's the worst. It can be spread by various ways, and we're still learning, but it could be spread by equipment, by my feet. I wore different boots today so I don't track it into my own farm. Birds, water, wind. So we're still, again, trying to find out more about this disease so we can manage it.
And we don't know that management would also just mean making sure this is a cornfield next year.
So rotation can help.
Okay.
Yes. But again, it's not going to be the cure-all. I would not want to do beans on beans in this field, for sure. That's a good point. And I think with any root rots, you want to make sure you have better drainage if possible. So tiling, ditches, that type of thing. And another thing, I think in this part of the field, I would speculate to say we have some compaction in some of the areas where we're finding it, and that's true of any root rot. So I think that's more often where we're finding it right now. But again, in the surrounding areas, it was just scattered throughout the field, and we really had to look for it.
What else should farmers know that we haven't talked about here this morning?
I think that this is could be a serious disease. You know, I don't want to raise too much alarm about it, but I think that it could be pretty much spread across the state, but we're just confusing it with other diseases right now. And